on what the therapeutic endeavor really is. We're talking fundamentally about the fact that life does not cause us pain, that our reaction really is the ego. There's no reaction, we are just pure being. The ego requires reaction to life. And so nothing in life causes us pain. It is neutral fundamentally. Our reaction to it convinces us it is not neutral. It is trying to hurt us, overwhelm us, or whatever our reaction tells us to conclude. So we have life here. We have our reaction to life, our conceptual reaction to life, which is really our personal reaction. It's who we are as ego. If, after all, life were the cause of our pain, we'd have to change life in the field of psychotherapy. Because if my girlfriend rejects me and I have pain because of that, you'd have to go find her somewhere and bring her back and have her accept me. If that's the cause of my pain, changing that would somehow have to be the cause of my happiness. If she dies or something, or marries somebody else, and I'm stuck with that pain. So therapy can never presume that life is the cause of our pain and pathology. It must assume that our reaction to life is what is the material that we deal with in psychotherapy, and then we have to discuss how we deal with that.
But is it possible that that presumption that you were saying is incorrect? That I mean, suppose I don't get along with my mother, and then she dies, and isn't it also possible that is a situation where I could never get over that pain?
Why?
Because, I mean, maybe the pain is out there and I could never get over it.
Well, just die is a fact.
Yeah.
Everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the big deal about that fact? Everybody dies. Why do we respond even to our own death? Or impending death, we know sooner or later that's going to happen too. But no, you react to that. You say somehow that because she dies, therefore I've lost my security and my worth, or I've been the cause of her death, therefore I'm no good, I can't accept that. So we have to examine very carefully what happens in every situation that we have pain and pathology, so I can teach you very quickly the typical reactions that take place, so you can begin to understand how quickly you can get to the pathology. So everything in life is just a fact. Your mother died, that's just a fact. You're not diminished in any way. In any way. Sure, I've given you some money if you need it, but I mean, you as a being, your being remains just what it's always been. Your capacity for happiness remains just what it's always been. If there's no egotistical reaction and you're just pure being, you're going to discover that the highest and optimal state of happiness is yours, is you. It is unconditional. It is not conditioned by life giving you something or conditioned by some reaction that you have to life. Your being, your subjective awareness at the center of your being is inherently happiness. That which you will be that when there's no reaction. If I had more time, I would discuss all of that with you so you could see that. You'll discover that for yourself if you explore into all of your reactions and see how it is one with the ego and how you make yourself react and what the process is of conceptualizing, value judging the conceptualization. It's abstracting life and then conceptually reacting to your own abstraction. If you like, sometime I'd be glad to go into that. But I just wanted to catch you all up on where we were last week so you can see it. If you want me to proceed, I'll proceed from there. So life is, that's all. It's not good or bad. Only thinking makes it so, as Shakespeare said in Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 2, whatever that was. Therefore, in psychotherapy, we have something to deal with. We have to discover the reactions that have been rejected, and through the rejection causing a state of fixation, being a continuation of our subconscious reacting in the way we have always reacted. With fears of abandonment, with fears of inadequacy, or responses of conceptualization, identification with inadequacy, with worthlessness, with weakness and impotence, and all the things that we have been fixated upon. And then we react to the fixation. I'll give you an example from last week, for example, quickly. I have been rejected. Even that is a value judgment. I don't know what rejection means, being rejected. made them feel inadequate or worthless. I'm not sure. Rejection is already a loaded term. But let's assume we accept that I've been rejected. All right, I react to that and I produce a feeling of worthlessness. Let's say, for example, I could produce a feeling of insecurity, of non-masculinity, a feeling of inner deadness because she was finding me feeling aroused and alive. Going back to all the ego needs that I mentioned to you in the first circumstance. My reaction is a reaction to the frustration of one of those basic ego needs that makes me feel like a psychological being, a psychological entity. I'll show you that more specifically when we get into the example. She rejected me, therefore I feel unlovable. She didn't love me, therefore I'm unlovable. She didn't love me, therefore I'm worthless, I have no value to her. She didn't love me, or she rejected me, therefore I'm inadequate as a male, sexually, attractively. I haven't got what it takes, I'm insubstantial, I'm not as much man as other men. Any of those can be my reaction, or a combination of all of those. I reject that reaction and I have fixation, meaning that I'm still reacting as though I'm worthless, although not consciously. And I react to that primary reaction with a secondary reaction we call anger. I become angry with myself for being worthless. It may appear at the beginning as anger toward the other person for making me feel worthless, but if you look carefully, you'll see it's always fundamentally a condition of my own worthlessness, and therefore an anger toward myself, a rage toward myself. That's my secondary reaction. But I also reject that. That becomes also a fixation, more superficial secondary fixation. And then I react to the anger with depression, meaning I don't tolerate the anger. The anger is another affirmation of my worthlessness. It's another reflection of my no-goodness. I'm afraid of my rage, it might hurt somebody. I'm afraid of somebody else's rage toward me. I'm afraid that if I get angry, they will reject me even further. Whatever it is causes me to reject my anger, producing another fixation. And my reaction then to worthlessness is my anger. My reaction to my anger is my depression. And I don't stop yet. I don't like the depression either. I react to the depression and I say, I feel low. I feel down. I feel no good. I feel dead. I have no energy. And then I react to the depression, and the depression becomes a fixation. I lose sight of that, and I have an urge for alcohol, for example, or I might become manicky, or whatever my reaction to depression happens to be. Not done yet. You see so far that alcohol becomes, which is the high, my reaction is the high to the low, a feeling of euphoria, a sense of the energy that restores my sense of aliveness to the ego sense of animation, as a reaction to the deadness of not having any energy as a function of repressing the energy and the anger as a function of the worthlessness and so forth. In that case, alcohol is worthlessness 4 times removed. Now, I'm not done yet. I go to AA and I'm told that I should stop with the alcohol. I react to my taking alcohol as worthless. I can start the whole process all over again. But whatever it is, I don't like the alcohol. So quite often I substitute then, through my reaction, I substitute the urge for overeating or cigarette smoking or some other chemical that I take. Or I become addicted to AA, going to see people, have people raise my sense of worth and the sense of aliveness or whatever. And I become addicted to that. That becomes my reaction. That is, this reaction, I got to be with somebody, becomes my reaction against alcohol. Because I'm not going to be with somebody, if I'm not going to take the cigarette or the food, I'm going to find myself being urged for alcohol. And so let me show you then, if you work backwards, the therapy process work backwards. We want to understand the reactions. We're saying, what happens if you don't indulge the alcohol? Be with that for a moment so we can uncover the reaction by which we are motivated toward the alcohol. The reaction is my depression. If I don't take the alcohol, I'm going to feel awfully depressed, awfully unhappy, down, low, dead, Because depression has a connotation. It is not just the label of depression. Different people respond to it as a feeling of inner deadness, lack of energy, apathy, worthlessness, guilt, anger, of course, if one can perceive that. By not taking the alcohol, by being with the urge to drink, and not running from it, by unifying with that urge to drink, but not drinking, I begin to hear how low I feel, and how I need this as a high, or something else as a high. I can stop this and substitute a different high that comes from cigarettes, a different chemical. From being with other people who feed me a sense of worth and esteem, or a sense of security, if that's what I need them to feed me. By being a sense of belonging, part of a larger group, or whatever it is I think I'm getting from that. Then I may end up attending 4 or 5 different AA meetings a week, as you find some people doing. Then it becomes a new addiction instead of the alcohol. If the alcohol gives you the high, you don't have the alcohol to give you a high, then you need people telling you what a good person you are for not drinking and for staying strong and whatever else is fed there. Or if I'm strong, be able to talk about my problems in that particular circumstance. If I then uncover the reaction, which is depression, which is just a word, we don't know what it is. All it means is somehow I feel deflated instead of inflated, like an egotistical balloon. I feel somehow that take the worth out of me, take the hot air out of the balloon. I feel somehow deflated as an ego. I feel less of an entity. This makes me feel more inflated. If I unify with the depression and don't reject it, so there's no longer a fixation, then that is free to say what it has to say as a conceptual message. I will no longer be pressing down that energy, which is anger, and the anger will speak and say, damn it, why the hell did you do this to me? Why the hell did you reject me? Don't you see how worthless you made me feel? Then I hear the worthlessness, and I hear how I'm ready to believe that I'm worthless, and that's why I feel worthless, because I'm ready to buy into that notion that I am worthless, and what you did is just feed what I already want to feed on. And so then the anger becomes very apparent. There's no longer a reaction to anger through depression. No longer a reaction to depression through alcohol. This is what's called psychological or therapeutic movement. Eventually I will have to, if I let the anger say what it has to say, I will hear the worthlessness. Only this time, if I don't react to the worthlessness, if I unify with the worthlessness feeling, which is not a being, we're never being worthless. Because even as a depressed individual, I might have more worth to somebody than if I'm an active individual. Sure.
How do you know when you follow the chain all the way back? How do you know when you're in the
Yes, when there's a total release of all reactivity, the individual is able to be with the feeling of worthlessness. Now, in some cases, you do have to go another step back. Some individuals who make the presumption or the reaction that being worthless is being nothing at all. That they have the feeling that they are totally worthless, not just relatively worthless, but absolutely worthless. And remember, we talked about the ego's needs for worth, security, power, and so forth, identity. And there are some individuals who feel so absolutely affirmed in their worthlessness, they really feel like a nothing, a non-ego, a non-entity. And one will have to go further back into the worthlessness, because even the worthlessness becomes a reaction. And one will have to unify with that feeling. In most cases, we feel relatively worthless because we feel worthy to somebody or on something or other. We have some skills, some adequacy. So for most of us, we feel only relatively worthless, not absolutely worthless. But in some cases, we feel absolutely worthless.
How important do you feel it is to go through sequentially? I mean, what if you're able to go from depression and get back to the worthless?
You can't. No, you can't. There's no way to do it. These are all reactions on top of. You can only theorize worthlessness, but you cannot experience.
So it's more of a cognitive.
Yes, because this anger has captured energy at a more superficial level. You have to go through that level to get to the energy at this level. And that's what I'm concerned about with some therapists. They try to bring the client into a kind of conceptualized reactivity. That is, they go from depression and they say, I have a feeling you're feeling worthless. Try to get them into here. Or they know from working with alcoholics that Many alcoholics, not most, not all, feel worthless or convinced they're worthless. They try to go from here to here. You can't do it. You can do it only intellectually, conceptually, but there is no release from the experiential energy that has taken form as anger, as depression, or deadness, to make sure that I don't act out my rage toward myself. I deprive myself of any energy for acting out. Some of you may have been taught, maybe your group when you first had me, I may have talked a little bit about in the assessment course, about how suicide takes place when depression starts to lift, not when you are in the height of depression, because when in the height of depression you don't have any energy for acting out self-destructively. And many people in state hospitals never recognize that, and they felt some comfort when the client's depression started to lift. They felt very relieved, and that's when you started to get the suicide, because that's when energy becomes available to act out self-destructively.
Is there any point in the chain where you feel you're most likely to see suicidal acting out?
Well, it depends upon the individual and what feeling they have for their ability to react and escape pain. In some cases, a sense of worthlessness, may be so intense that the anger will arise, they will lose all control and act out even at this particular stage. They'll not be able to bind the anxiety in depression. And so suicide can take place. When I'm talking about suicide, I mean a true suicidal intent, not a suicidal gesture. Many narcissists will go through suicidal gestures, not because they really want to die or destroy themselves. They just want to go through the gesture so as to control the environment, to provide them with narcissistic supplies as a form of control of their environment. If you don't give me attention, if you don't give me concern, I will attempt suicide, and then you will be, as my husband or as my wife or as my therapist or whatever, you will feel responsible, and therefore I control you into giving me this attention, this concern, this flattery, this whatever boosts my ego in some way.
It seems then that it would be most likely, you'd be most likely to find a real suicidal intent during the points of transition from one place to another, because it's when energy is highest and when there's movement. I mean, it's relatively safe to stay at some sort of a fixed point.
Here, you see, is when you'll get it. From here, you don't have enough energy anymore. You're moving from here and still moving by whatever reactive ways you're still moving. You don't have enough energy here. And you don't have any here. It's from here to here that the anger, the energy is there. And if you don't bind it in depression, you're liable to act it out. So this is the threat. When I first get rejected, many clients will intimidate you with that. They'll say, boy, if you reject me like everybody else has, the intimation is you're going to have a juicy suicide on your hands. I don't intend to take any more of this from life. And they intimidate you, you get scared, you keep feeding them what they need. So in many cases, you must discriminate between the suicidal gesture, which is not an intent to die, from the tremendous rage and self-destructiveness that we find in an individual who is so convinced that they're worthless that it's impossible to keep on living because they're so convicted of their worthlessness that they can never be happy to have all this pain that they have to now live with the rest of their life. You see? Or I go back here and I say, well, my mother, my wife, or whatever, was the only source of my worth possible. And now that she's dead, or she rejected me, or whatever, all I have is continuous pain. Or anxiety, meaning she was the source of my security. She's dead, she's gone, therefore all I have is continuous insecurity. And rather than live with that continuous insecurity, suicide becomes an ego-syntonic defense or escape against pain. In other words, the ego's greatest fear is not death, it is helplessness in the face of pain. Any of us, if we feel helpless in the face of continuous pain, we'll consider suicide some kind of death, falling asleep, or psychosis, which is a psychological death. If we can't eliminate the pain, we'll eliminate the consciousness of the pain. We don't feel any consciousness. We can do that through alcohol too, eliminate the consciousness. Because we can't get rid of the pain, we try to eliminate the consciousness of the pain. So we have physical death or psychological death through psychosis, or psychological death through inebriation of one kind or another, eliminating the conscious awareness. If you understand this process of reaction and fixation, you can go very quickly. Movement can take place very quickly, and you can come here not intellectually, but experientially. They will feel the depression, they will accept that, they will feel the anger, they will feel the worthlessness, and they will learn to accept the feeling as worthlessness as a self-created thing, as a reaction to rejection, and not as a fact that I am worthless. I only feel worthless as a function of the negative things I say about myself. In other words, I am not worthless. You may remember the movie star Marilyn Monroe, who, very beautiful, physically beautiful anyway, desirable by many men, and committed suicide because she felt unlovable and worthless. To many men she would have been very valuable as a companion, as a love object or whatever. But to her, starting initially, some of you have to remember her own life, being abandoned by her own father, never could accept that, reacted in such a way that his abandonment of me was a confirmation of my worthlessness. And then trying to find all kinds of men to make sacrifices for her, to undo that original feeling of worthlessness, never being able to do it, getting a little older, getting a little less attractive, feeling I'm never going to be able to affirm my worth, feeling somehow death is better than living continuously with pain. The ego is very frightened of helplessness in the face of continuous pain. Many adolescents commit suicide on that basis because they don't have the perspective to realize that the pain will never go away. To them, if it's here, it's always going to be here. And if they have no ego strength to deal with it, no perspective to realize it doesn't pass. So we take some examples. I'll show you how quickly we can go into this, or how to hear the reactive chain, the reaction and fixation chain in regard to any presenting problem. Once you understand what the basic chains are, any presenting problem, you know what the whole chain is. Give me any presenting problem, give me the whole chain. There aren't that many, because the ego only has certain basic needs. And as a function of each basic need, there's a particular reactive chain. You see how fast therapy will go. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about what you mean by total release, because I don't quite understand that.
Yes. Yes. We're talking about the creation of a feeling. The creation of a feeling is when subconscious energy, which is just energy, is conceptualized subconsciously in a negative way. You create a negative feeling. So a negative feeling is energy at the substance of it, plus a conceptual form. That's its substance, this is its form. So how do I know that my feeling is worthlessness? Obviously there are some words there. Conceptualization of myself as worthless, or inadequate, or weak, or helpless. Otherwise, how can I distinguish between feeling? You see, the energy is the feeling part of the feeling, and the subconscious self-conceptualization is the form of the feeling, the form that the feeling takes. If I don't conceptualize myself in any way, if I cease to react, I will be this free-flowing, ecstatically flowing. Because when I conceptualize myself, I become a static thing. I become worthless, I become inadequate, I become unlovable, I become whatever static label of myself. When that energy is not conceptualized, it is free-flowing or ecstatic, and is the same as the highest joy possible. When you are that energy, when you're no longer egotistically identified, and you are free-flowing energy, you're not conceptualized in a static way in any way, then you're going to find the natural happiness, the natural high that life or nature has imbued us all with. But because we're so conceptualized at the deepest level, we never experience that joy, so we need some artificial euphorics through alcohol, through sexuality, through music, through whatever we use to give us some relative pleasure, because we have no joy, no real joy, no real being. We have only this conceptualized being. So full drainage means that this message has to totally be unconditionally accepted in conscious awareness and speak and drain out. I feel so worthless because I am so worthless because mommy wouldn't tolerate me at all, and she loved baby brother so much better, and look what she did here, there, and everywhere. And the message is all in there, the evidence for my worthlessness. And then when the form of the feeling speaks totally in conscious awareness, then the energy of the feeling flows free into conscious awareness, which is a deep experience. Which is what I'm saying is the basic criterion of the full resolution of a feeling. A feeling is not totally resolved until you get this. Only when the feeling is totally resolved, so there's no longer any form to it, only the substance of it, then you get a kind of peak experience, a warm feeling in the tummy, feeling of tremendous relaxation, unburdening. Client invariably says, "Oh, I'm glad I'm done with that," or some such unburdening kind of feeling, a deep sense of peacefulness. This is the criterion of the full resolution of the feeling. Without this, it means there's still some form left to the feeling. It hasn't spoken totally to conscious awareness. You haven't unified with it. Therefore, you're still rejecting it at some level. You're still reacting to it. You're still fixated here. I don't care what part of it is still left. It's still fixated. That's our pain, and that's our pathology. And of course, the more fixation, the more reaction, the greater the pathology. I could describe that in a little different way, in terms of being separated from the reality of yourself, which is that further and further removed. It's like you are a whole ocean that you take little pieces of wave and make them frozen static like pieces of ice. So that instead of being the whole ocean, you are a number of fragments, frozen static, unmoving, not flowing within yourself, and so you feel dead because all that energy that is naturally free-flowing is like a piece of ice. And so you have fragmented your natural wholeness. Instead of being the whole mind, the whole psyche, you are a fragment, which is the positive sense of worth, and also subconsciously identified with the opposite fragment, which is a sense of worthlessness, and they're always at war with each other. Instead of being the whole energy that sometimes creates a feeling of worthlessness or a feeling of worth, you become fragmented into two warring opposites, and you've lost your wholeness. Losing your wholeness, you've lost your health, your psychological health. Psychotherapy is the process of becoming whole again. Healing comes from the word whole. And as you become more whole again, as you unify what you've rejected and become more whole, you become bigger. So as you are becoming now what you formerly have rejected. So you're growing psychologically, and then you're back to the whole that you originally were before you rejected anything, before any fixation took place. When you're whole, when you're as big as you can be, then you are this guy again. You are an energy. You don't know who the heck you are. You could care less. You are a free-flowing joyfulness. You are without staticness, without psychological finity or boundedness. You are a life energy that is incredibly grand. And you are also an individual, unique expression of that in regard to your own natural potentials and abilities by which you express that energy naturally. Your natural interests, your natural inclinations.
So do you not know that movement is actually complete until the problem is resolved?
That's right. The movement is not complete until the basic feeling has been unified with, so that you have a therapeutic healing effect, a unification. Because I may be moving a lot, and many young therapists, they assume the movement is the therapy. Look, my client got angry. This has got to be therapy. My client started to cry today. Isn't crying always a sign of therapy? No, because many clients cry as a cover-up for anger, as a solely a defense to release tension, so they don't have to show you their anger, their rage, and the worthlessness that lies beneath it. So you see all that tearfulness, you say, well, that's emotionality. By definition, emotionality is signs of therapy taking place. It's not often even a sign of movement, much less therapy. Only when you get to the original source of fixation, of reaction, of rejection, and that's unified with, as the whole complex, the whole linkage been undone, without which there is no therapeutic effect.
Those links don't disappear anyway. People go back and forth, right?
If they haven't resolved the whole thing, they will go back and forth. Sure, they'll go back and forth from the alcohol to feeling depressed, and then sometimes feeling some anger in it, and reinstituting the depression, reinstituting the alcoholism. Constantly feeling worthless, until you have unified with the feeling of worthlessness, so the whole thing speaks, so you see how you created it and why you identified with it. As long as you remain fixated at the level of worthlessness, you may get into all of this and never touch the worthlessness and come out with all kinds of other reactions which are more pleasant, and you'll still feel worthless, and you'll still be capable of being made to feel worthless, and you'll still be fearful of rejection, you'll still be afraid of taking risks, fear you may get rejected, or whatever in your mind triggers the worthlessness. And you will go back and forth. But you will never fully feel the worthlessness. all you will feel is my nervousness about taking the risk of relationship, or looking for a job, or going to graduate school, or whatever I think jeopardizes my sense of worth. And I will make that the focus, and we will talk forever about that focus, about why I'm afraid to go home to my parents. And I will justify it, they never treat me right, and then as a therapist you'll say, well, you don't like it, don't go home. Be a big boy, be a big girl, you don't have to go home and endure all of that, because you value this independence thing, which is what should be. We're not hearing the reaction, we're not hearing the fixation. You have to ask what happens when you go home that's so intolerable. What are you reacting to when you are home, in other words? Eventually you'll hear, they always criticize me. They always compare me to my big brother, my big sister. They always do. For what consequence? How do you react to that when they do? There's a question we're asking. We ask what consequence? What's the reaction? So they compare you. You see, the intimation the client always makes is, if you were compared to somebody and made to feel lesser than, wouldn't you also feel worthless? You see? That's the intimation that you have to challenge. The basic presumption, the basic delusion is that life causes me my pain. When you see all this and life no longer causes you your pain, you fully embrace life. You're in love relationship with it. You're in optimal contact with that reality, because you're not putting it on a trial anymore, value judging it as being acceptable or unacceptable, because you know that your own mind is creating your pain. You understand it, you see it, and you no longer do that to yourself, because you clearly see that your pain is not life-created, but reactive, mind-created.
But it seems like there's an implicit message in there that you should go home. You should go home and confront all this.
No, we're only asking how come you don't, because we're saying be free, because that is your natural state. I mean, do whatever you really want to do. If you want to go home, go home. If you want to go home and are afraid to, then we want to look at the reaction. Why you think you can't. But we don't want to make the value judgment, you should go home, or should anything, because all the shoulds are reactions to what is. All shoulds are reactions. What is has to be accepted. Well, if we had more time, so I could show you that more specifically. And show you all the linkages, and then you'll see how fast therapy works. Okay, understanding that, then we can discuss any problem or any feeling you want to discuss, and I can show you how quickly we get into it and where it's coming from. Which is all the essence of the therapeutic process. You must learn to hear what the reaction is. Once you see a certain kind of state, you immediately know that it's linked to a particular reaction. You say to the client, the client doesn't bring it up, You're feeling this, aren't you? The client says, how did you know that? I thought I kept anybody from ever seeing that. But that's not the therapy. The therapy is, how come you don't let yourself feel that? Or how come you don't share that with me? How come you don't let me see that particular reactive feeling in yourself? We get into it, you're going to value judge like everybody else, you're going to confirm my worthlessness, and so forth and so on. You understand, in egotistically speaking, we are nothing. We are not worthy or worthless. We are not adequate or inadequate. We are never secure or insecure. They are all reactions to life. We are life. We are a particularly unique form of life, which, if not clothed with subconscious reactivity, is an ecstasy. If we know that as a fact, then we challenge the client's every reaction. We don't encourage that running away, because we know that by encouraging their running away, we are encouraging their losing of what is foundational in themselves. And that the running away only creates greater reaction, greater fixation, greater distortion of reality of themselves. A greater avalanche of conceptual reactivity lying atop the feelings they're going to have to eventually face, making it more difficult for them and for you, the therapist, to have them face. So bring me any example, and I'll show you, if you want, or whatever else you want me to discuss, the process of movement, therapy, whatever is your interest. I'm saying a peak experience is the true criterion of the full resolution of a feeling, the true growth effect or the true healing effect psychologically. If you don't get it, you're still stuck somewhere. If you've gone through any feeling of your own and gone to the very bottom of it, you feel the full release of the conceptualized form and the full release of that energy, and you know that you are done with the feeling.
You could go all the way back to worthlessness and say, well, my mother was right, see, I am worthless. And then you have to go back farther than that.
No, we're still only with the feeling of worthlessness. I mean, the patient's problem is when they assume that they are worthless because they feel worthless. Worthlessness is only a created feeling. See? You can only be what you are. You can only be your being, which is an energy. You can't be anything else. You can only feel. When you distort that energy and create a personal feeling out of it, you can create a particular feeling. So you can never be worthless. You can only feel worthless, because if you were the same kid in my family, I would have loved you up a storm. Same kid. But because you had your family, or just the reverse. In your family, they rejected your cuteness or your lovableness. You know, I had one young lady several years ago in therapy who felt she was worthless and despised herself. Why? Because she had this terrible urge to love somebody. What's so terrible about that? See, when she put her arms around her mother when she was a little girl, her mother just contracted in horror and shock and nearly vomited and said, "Don't ever touch me, that's terrible." So the child began to assume that her loving nature was somehow despicable and terrible. So when she felt loving towards some man, she was afraid she was going to somehow injure them terribly, and she did them a big favor by leaving them, even though she loved them in some way and felt loved by them. She was convinced that what was most beautiful in her, which is her loving capacity, was something ugly and despicable. But how it made Mother feel, how it made Mother react. We don't know. Mother may have reacted to homosexual tendencies there from the daughter. She may have reacted to the loss of psychological space by the contact. She may have been reacting to the fact that she can't handle feelings, especially loving feelings, touchy-feely kind of stuff physically. We don't know what she's reacting to. But the child reacted not to the mother's reaction. She reacted to her own conviction, which is that my lovingness is evil, is bad.
But doesn't she then have to say, my mother is not all-knowing, all-powerful, the embodiment of what's right? I mean, she can't go all the way back to those worthless feelings and still believe that her mother is right. So she has to change that myth.
Yes, but she will automatically, when she feels her own loving feelings again, she will see the experience, the beauty of them. Nobody will have to tell her that loving somebody is the nice thing. Because
So you think people are really want to believe in that myth that their parents are right and beautiful? And
yes, only because they still project the notion that my parents are my source of security and my source of identity. Therefore, if I malign them in some way, I'm maligning myself because I'm only a reflection of them in some way. So you have the child's sense of omnipotence that is somehow still there projected onto parents as a source of security. So I don't want to see them as bad, because I need to feel worthy through their love. If I see them as bad, then I can't feel worthy through their love, because if somebody bad loves me, it doesn't enhance my worth. You see? So they are still convicted of their worthlessness, because they have faced the feeling of worthlessness and heard the whole thing play itself out, where the evidence came from, why they felt worthless, who they compared themselves to, because worthlessness only comes out of comparison. You can't get worthless unless you compare yourself to your mother, your father, your baby brother, or big sister, or whoever you're comparing yourself, as a sense of value. So you're saying, compared to that individual, I have relative valuelessness. I am worthless to my mother. But I could have been worthless to my mother just because I was born male. I could be worthless to my mother just because I was born. She wanted to have a career. Here she got pregnant with me, destroyed her career, hated herself for not having a career, for getting herself pregnant, projected all that hostility onto me. I could have been born the greatest little kid in the world. You see, it makes no difference. She hated any child. She hated the pregnancy. She really hated herself for being so stupid as to get herself pregnant at a time when she was about to enter college or have a career or whatever. She can't forgive herself for that, so I catch the brunt of all that projected hostility. And in many cases, I continue to play that role because I introject mother, so that I don't feel separate from mother, I don't feel abandoned. I introject her as my own conscience structure, and I continue to abuse myself with I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good, I never should have been born. I picked that up from mother. I never should have been born. And I played the whole theme out in this fixated manner. I played the whole theme out the rest of my life as I project mother as my own superego or conscience structure. I continue to play that out. Then you have to deal with why I won't let her go. Because if I let her go, if I spit her out, psychologically, I feel all alone. I have no foundation of security at all. I'm afraid to feel that. I'm afraid to grow up and be a person in my own right. So I hold on to being mother in there. So I hold on to the self-abuse and all that follows from that. So I hold on to the alcoholism. So I hold on to whatever else I do as a reaction, you see, to my own self-criticalness in the form of my mother criticizing me still as a little boy, saying, why the hell were you born in the first place? It was my fault. But I don't hear that, so I still feel worthless. Once I hear that, I will hear it. I will say, you are worthless because you were born in the first place. You deprived me of money. You deprived me of a chance to go to college. You deprived me of things I could have done for myself. You deprived me of the little girl I always wanted to have. Here you with the third boy. Who needed it? You're totally superfluous. Who needs you around? I already got 2 sons. I feel all of that. It's all there. Here.
Seems like at that point you start to get in touch with all kinds of angry feelings towards your parents. I mean, who could hear that and not feel angry?
Why? No, not with understanding comes compassion. Once I understand that it is their problem, once I see that my mother can't accept herself for not having the job or the career, then it's no longer my problem. I don't need the anger. The anger is only a displacement of my own anger toward myself.
You have to go through that stage of anger towards the parents.
Yes, but I say that's also a subterfuge. But we'll have to go through that. Because you won't hear the anger toward myself until you hear the displacement onto them. I will pretend that they caused me to feel worthless, not me, not my reaction.
The other way around. You could go through the anger towards yourself and then realize that who you were really angry at whereas your parents for the original feelings of worthlessness.
Why would I be angry to myself then?
Well, didn't you say last week that depression is a suppression of some anger towards yourself?
That's right. The anger toward the other person is always projection. It's fundamentally always anger toward yourself. Worthlessness is always anger toward yourself. It's just that we don't want to hear our own rage toward ourselves and we take the anger we project on somebody else having caused our worthlessness rather than our being convicted that we are worthless to begin with.
You could be angry at yourself for being worthless.
That's right. And that's what we really are angry with ourselves about. But in many cases I don't hear that anger. I hear only the anger projected onto the world that has made me feel worthless. See, I don't hear my own reaction. I hold the world responsible that my mother didn't give me what I always wanted, so my mother is responsible for my insecurity, my immaturity, my worthlessness. I don't hear that I created my own sense of worthlessness through my reaction to mother. That I have a real conviction of my worthlessness, that even if mother were to tell me she loved me now, I would still feel worthless. Because now I built a case for myself of my worthlessness. So yes, you sometimes have to go through the projected anger, but invariably if you do, you will hear the anger directed towards self. And the fear of directing that anger towards self, the fear of intensifying the worthlessness or intensifying suicidal possibilities, the rage toward oneself, loss of control against oneself. You will always hear that. I'm saying that any feeling directed toward the environment is projection. So if I don't feel angry to myself, why do I need to be angry to anybody? There'll be no need for me to be angry to anybody. It's only when I'm angry toward myself I can't accept something in myself that I tie it to somebody out there and convince myself that they are the cause of my anger. They will have to undo it. Therefore, therapy becomes a transference situation in which you have to play the role of the unloving mother, only this time you have to become the loving mother. Because my conviction is only that, you see, will undo it. I don't look at my reaction. I look at the fact that I'm not angry with myself. I'm angry with my mother because she made me feel worthless. Therefore, you're going to have to be like my mother. You're going to have to love me like I've never been loved. So I can feel my worth, so I can feel the power of my will to be able to produce what I want, so I can feel a sense of security and not feel totally abandoned in a world of vulnerability because I have no power to produce what I want to produce for myself, or whatever that conviction is. They are using you to replace the external environment that they're holding responsible for their own pain. being caused by their own reaction. Always your own reaction. The ego is reaction. The fixation is what you remain identified with. The ego always will fixate because it's afraid to feel empty. When there is no reaction, watch and see, when there is no reaction, you are pure being, pure awareness. Watch and see how that feels sometimes. See if you can find a limit to yourself when you just are. When you're not reacting to life or to yourself or anything at all. Totally surrendered to what is. No more reaction. Then you'll see where our optimal lovingness and the happiness abides. In us. Not conditionally in what the world gives us. It abides unconditionally in our own subjective center.
So the therapist is, in this process, is providing a place where the client feels accepted, right? So that they can experience the depression and the anger and accept those.
Yes, what you're intimating is that I first have to be in an atmosphere of acceptance before I will let myself feel all this, which is what Rogers assumed incorrectly. Because I must face my feelings unconditionally. As long as I set a condition that says you must provide a warm atmosphere, because in my state you can provide the warmest atmosphere and I won't perceive it as a warm atmosphere. I will still project onto you as a value judge. Even though you tell me 1,000,000 times you will not value judge me, I still project onto you that you're a value judge. You will never, as a therapist, be able to produce the atmosphere. If I could perceive your loving of me, this warm atmosphere, I'm already healed. Most clients can't perceive acceptance from another. It's too contradictory to what they feel. So you can't build that atmosphere, and you ought not to wait to build that atmosphere because it is really unnecessary, because the client has to unconditionally, not conditionally, unconditionally face the truth of themselves just because the truth is there. Not because I'm a loving and accepting therapist, because the world will not be loving and accepting. They will still say when I go out there, I have to find a warm atmosphere before I can accept my feelings. See? We understand the presumptions, and it makes a lot of sense. Unless you question it, then you begin to see that fully functioning a human being goes out into life, sets no conditions before he or she is himself. He was real and spontaneous, irrespective of whether you like me, don't like me, accept me, don't accept me, value me, don't value me. I care enough about me to spontaneously share with you what I am and who I am, because that's me. Then I'm free, then I'm real, then I'm whole. Otherwise, you will make the client set conditions and generalize. Why can't the world be like my therapist was? Why can't my husband be like this wonderful man who sits next to me 1 hour a week? He accepts everything about me, and then she goes home and hates her husband as a function of supposedly your acceptance of her, assuming that if you can be this way, her husband could be, the world could be, her mother should have been.
But there's also another reaction that could happen. The person could say, here's the therapist, here's a place and a therapist who accepts me, who accepts my experiences without judgment, and therefore, since I have that one place, it doesn't matter that the rest of the world rejects me. And so they can take this strength that they, and believe in themselves from this therapist and place of therapy. But what happens with therapy? Well, that's all part of the process of changing from the belief in the therapeutic relationship to belief in the self. I think when you...
But believe afterward, the problem is not as a therapist, you're not accepting me. The problem is I don't accept me.
Right.
How are you going to translate that? Because in many cases you accept me and I still don't accept me. How does that get translated that if you accept me, and I'm not so sure you will, because in my judgment I have to justify my feeling. To justify my feeling, I will project and make sure that in some way you don't accept me. But assuming that I think that you do accept me, whatever that means, well, I'm not so sure you'll accept if I continue not growing. If I waste your time, I have a feeling somewhere along the way that even if you accept this feeling, that somewhere along the way you're not going to accept me if I don't produce in some way. Once you get angry with me, you'll start value judging me. But that's still irrelevant. You see, you've got to explain the translation between I, the therapist, accepting you, and you're now being free to accept your own feelings, painful feelings. You see, what does it take for you to unconditionally accept your own painful feelings? That's to make no value judgment of yourself. If you make no value judgment of yourself, you don't need me. to accept you. And if you make conditional value judgments of yourself, even if I do accept you, you will still find yourself saying, no, he accepts this worth, but I can't. Because he doesn't feel worthless. If he feels worthless like this, he wouldn't accept that either. So my accepting your worthlessness doesn't mean I accept my own. It doesn't mean you're going to accept your own. See, how will that get translated? I can accept you feeling worthless. How are you going to accept you feeling worthless?
But the therapist doesn't accept the worthlessness, just the feeling, and believes that the person is worthwhile, worthy.
Yeah, if I'm a therapist.
Where? If you don't see any worth in yourself, how can I presume with this unconditional positive regard? You see, positive regard involves negative regard too, because you can't have one without the other. They can't be positive without negative. How can I see something positive in you that you don't see in yourself? You would think that I'm just a fake. What positiveness can I possibly see in you that you don't see in yourself? If you see ugliness and rage and fear, and I say to you, you're really a nice, caring person, you don't see the caringness.
Well, I wouldn't think you would want to say any specific things like nice, caring person, but to accept and respect the global person.
Yeah, but how do I do that? Do I accept the global person and not come into therapy and moving? Do I accept the global patient when the patient says, I need more direction, I don't like this non-directive stuff, I need more advice? What will you then do? How long have you needed more advice? Let me go back to the reflective thing. Will you accept the client moving away from what you structure as the process? The client will eventually find some avenue by which you say, sorry, I can't continue with you. Why? Because the therapist, not accepting himself or herself unconditionally, accepts nobody unconditionally. Not capable of. The reason for that is, if you observe very carefully, that if you look at the source of relationship, if there's a feeling here, say, impotence of will or weakness, if I can't accept that as a therapist, if I can't accept feeling weak, then I can't accept certain feelings in you that trigger my weakness. If I can accept everything, then you're free to be whatever you wish to be, because whatever you trigger in me is acceptable to me. You see? That's a different story. Once, because now I understand how to unconditionally accept myself, what does that involve? See, as long as I still have fixation and reaction, I have not unconditionally accepted myself. Therefore, I am still reacting in here with a particular feeling of worthlessness or inadequacy or weakness, and I become afraid that when you start dominating the therapy, or when you start controlling me, when you start growing and make me feel ineffectual, I will react with this despicable feeling that I don't accept. I accept myself only on condition that I don't feel my own weakness, my own inadequacy, my own unlovableness. You see? So at least I accept, for example, that I have a loving capacity. Even if I don't accept that I am lovable, I accept that I'm a loving person. I go into therapy, I have the ability to accept you. The client says to me, you're the most rejecting therapist I've ever had. Here I am just reflecting and accepting everything the best I can. The client needing to justify their own anger will see me as being an unaccepting person. Not being able to accept myself as an unaccepting person, I start to react. I'm in the same boat as the client, as you can't tell the patients from the doctors without a scorecard.
But isn't that all part of the process? If the client projects their anger onto the therapist, and then the therapist says, I'm not your mother, I'm your therapist, I am not the person who rejected you, I'm the person who is accepting you, and is that part of...
The question is, what should be? How come you don't feel that I am that person?
And you're screaming at the person, I'm the person who's accepting.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have
You're
screaming at them, then the therapist is buying that by their being angry, he is that person.
Yeah, but we could say we're not, but still, something in us triggered that. We have acted in some way in their judgment. But I'm saying to you that even if we don't act in any way similar to their parent, they will still project and see something, because they need to get these feelings out. That's what transference really means. They will make you something you are not. Because if they could see you realistically, they would already be fairly mature. They don't see you realistically. They see you as an authority figure. Even though you don't act like one, they still see you as an authority figure that makes them feel like a child, makes them feel weaker than, and they despise their own weak feelings. And so they project all this power onto you, even though you don't use it or want to use it, to get their own feelings out. See? That's why transference has to be understood.
If you do understand transference, then the therapist doesn't get caught into that cycle.
That's right, but as I said last week, we have a tendency to believe the positive transferences. We don't believe the negative transferences. You know, we think the anger is a transference, but the love. Remember in the Rogers movie, did you see that one? Where she says to him, oh, you'd make a wonderful father. And he says back to her, you'd make a wonderful daughter. You see, he buys right in. That's all it's transference. You see, he didn't deal with the transference there. He took that as reality. And she says to him, he believes that, because he wants to believe that about himself. They'd make a wonderful father. So he throws back at her and says, you'd make a wonderful daughter. So that shut it all over. Because it's playing into the transference. We have a tendency to believe the positive. When the client says you're angry, you're uncaring, we know that's transference. Because we're not aware that we're acting that way. But we do believe we're very loving people and caring people. So when the client says, you're the best listener, the best caring person I've ever seen, of course, I believe that. We don't see that as a transference. And that's what has to be discussed in great depth. All of that is transference. You are completely neutral. You are life. My loving of you as a client is a reaction to you. That's why so many therapists are getting involved sexually with their patients. You see the old papers all over the place. They take advantage of the client's transference and use that transference to embellish their own needs, exploit the client for the gratification of their own egotistical needs. Because they are reacting here also to the doubts about their masculinity and lovableness and adequacy and all the rest of that. So they tend to believe, they want to believe the positive transference. Okay. So sometime we can talk more about transference if you like, or whatever else you like. All right. Anything else you want to adjourn, or any other questions I can react to fairly quickly? So I might have a frame of reference by which, if we get into the therapy process, we can see how quickly it works and why it's working. But you're going to need more than one lecture. I mean, you're going to have a very deep understanding of your own reactivity, your own ego, and how it operates, and what protectiveness you have. Because when you see it operating yourself, you will understand your clients much better. Or we can look at it in the clients, and you'll be able to see it in yourself as well. Because many of us feel that we should be participant observers, you know, as Sullivan talks about, that we shouldn't be just non-reactors. We should be reacting to our clients. You see, if you understand that, then you'll...
You don't believe we should react to our clients?
No, well, I'm saying we shouldn't. I'm saying sometimes we do. But I'm saying if you're not a reactive individual, you will not react because you realize that you are neutral and that you're reacting only when the client becomes something important to you to fill some of your own needs, one way or another. And if you're doing that, then you have lost the therapeutic process. Then you are justifying reactivity. Therefore, you can't do anything for your clients anymore because you've justified your own sexual arousal, your own loving nature, caring of the client, whatever the relationship is feeding you, the elimination of your own sense of loneliness, and the alienation from life, or whatever else one is getting from the therapeutic relationship. One is getting that.
But wouldn't it be valuable as a therapist to teach the client to say you're constantly checking or testing me?
Yes, that's true.
That's
not necessarily a reaction. What I'm concerned about is the reaction that says, well, you're making me angry. It's how you treat everybody. See, I'm, as a therapist, I get angry with you because I'm sure that when you react this way, everybody gets angry with you. Which justifies to the client that the parents reacting to them justifies their own feelings of anger toward their parent. You see, what you're saying is that the world is causing your anger. Therefore, when you react this way, even I, as a therapist, react with anger. It's what you're doing to everybody, you see. So stop doing that. But this is my own personal reaction. I can't generalize to the fact that everybody is reacting to her in this way because of what she's doing. I have to look at my reaction of anger to her. Therefore, I'm saying that she's causing my anger, not myself. Therefore, I'm not a therapist. I'm still holding the world to be causing my feelings and not my reactions. If I believe that, I'm the same as the client believes.
Well, what if the client sets out to make the therapist angry at them.
So what?
And then the therapist gets angry.
Why?
Yes, I am angry at you because
Yes.
of whatever the client said or did.
No, you're angry because of your reaction to what the client says or does. For example, the client manipulates you.
Okay, so then you say, okay, yes, I'm angry at you because you manipulated me.
Right, you have to look at that reaction. And when you feel manipulated, you react to that as though somehow you're weak and they're strong, and they can control you, and they affirm your own weakness, and you despise your own weakness, so you react. But your reaction is to your own reaction of weakness, not to the manipulation. Because if I don't feel weak, you can try to manipulate me all you want, and I'll still deal with the fact that, what is this behavior doing for you? I'm not reacting because your manipulation doesn't make me feel weak. And even if it did, I wouldn't despise my weakness, therefore I still wouldn't react. If you make me feel weak and I hate my weakness, I will respond to my weakness with anger, project the anger onto you, and then justify the whole thing. Then I'm a client, you see. I've done exactly what the client does. Justified my own reactivity, my own feelings, and put the responsibility for those feelings onto the client. So there's no difference between us.
So you don't think that it's a human relationship between the therapist and the client?
I think many therapists make it that because they have some needs to be gratified.
But you don't think so?
No, I don't think anybody will grow under those circumstances because then the client will begin to feel that if it's a human relationship to us, that the therapist wants something from me. And once the patient feels the therapist wants something from me, they are already terribly insecure. They can no longer trust the therapist because they recognize the therapist feels deficient. The therapist is going to exploit me now for what they want from me. Even showing my acceptance of their lovingness, their adequacy as a therapist. See how you would feel once you sense that I want something from you, need something from you. See whether you can trust me anymore. You can trust me only when you sense that I don't want anything from you, neither to give you nor to take from you, but only to help you to see why you are rejecting yourself. Otherwise, it's just need gratification with need gratification. I try to gratify yours, you gratify mine.
Why would anyone be a therapist then, if you don't have any